such as violence and pandemics routinely reach across borders. And that affects all of us. Today, when we require increasingly integrated global governance system, because that system will bring peace and prosperity and spectacular peace to the entire planet. And that's why such effective global governance attracts importance, paramount importance, and it also takes baby steps towards end of arms conflict. Such governance will enable us to deal with new and emerging problems too. Technological risk, biological risk, chemical weapons risk, cyber attacks, all such we need to discuss, come together and look at the solutions for. And in such scenario or backdrop, the subject of today, invisible enemy, visible discussion, failure of science and global governance, becomes so crucial that the entire planet requires this kind of a webinar or subject. I'm very happy to share with all of you that two eminent scientists, Dr. Madhavan Nair sir, who got the civilian award like Padma Vibhushan, and eminent scientist Dr. Jennifer McBay, they are present here to share their domain knowledge and experience about the science, research in technology. Whereas we have for global governance another two veteran ambassadors who work in different part of planet, namely Honorable Shashank, former Foreign Secretary of India, and Honorable Trigunayat Anil, who has been ambassador to various countries. And I'm sure that this particular panel will give justice to this particular topic. The most important challenge for humanity to overcome today is of existential risk, whether we'll exist or not. The risk of invisible attacks, application of knowledge has now ill intent. Can we convert this particular energy into positivity? We require to come together, discuss, and come out with solutions. And that's why this webinar is most important, not only to you and me, but the entire planet. If there is a further failure of science or technology or global governance, then again we'll bring major destruction, like which we have seen in this pandemic, as well as in First and Second World War. With this, I say that please be ready with your questions and forward that to the host, and we'll also have this session interactive at the end. Once again, on behalf of Dr. Vishwanath Karad sir and entire MITW, I welcome you and hand over this particular mic to host Dr. Gautam Bapat sir. Thank you. Dhanyawad. Jai
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your opening remarks. And as rightly said, that please be ready with your questions. And your questions are really, really important to all of us. I'm your host. My name is Professor Gautam Bapat. You can see me in the panel list. So you're requested to go to questions and answers section. Please remember, do not use the chat window for questions. Your questions will not be addressed. So please use the questions and answers window. If you want to ask any questions to us, please go out there and please select my name, Gautam Bapat, and send your question to me so that I'll be able to take that question. If I may request Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Milind Pandey sir, to put on his camera so that we can capture a very, very memorable photograph. Everybody along with Honorable Vice Chancellor sir and all dignitaries are here. Thank you, sir. I think this is a very, very picture perfect frame.
Thanks, Gautam.
I'm sure the picture would have been taken by now.
Just a minute.
Okay, I will.
Nilesh, is the picture taken, Nilesh? Nilesh, is the picture taken?
Well, this is, we all are learning new ways because generally these
Done,
kind of
sir.
conferences or seminars happen
Done.
offline, we request everyone on the stage to
Nilesh,
stand
done.
up and smile, and we take the photographs.
Yes.
But this is a new way of taking photograph, completely new way. We capture moments. But yes, let's enjoy every way of doing things. Thank you very much.
Gautam,
I'm
done.
sure
You can take
photos
it
have
forward
been
now. Thank
taken
you.
by now. Thank you very much. Well, the worst part is we don't even see a photographer playing with his lens. but
We do a digital
yeah,
click.
sure. Yes. So let's move ahead. And as Professor Dr. R. N. Chitnis sir discussed in his opening remark, it is for all of us to understand the real meaning of this topic today, and for which I'm sure my technical team has a small film ready. So with this, I would like to request my technical team if they could please relay that film for all of us.
Outbreak of COVID-19 posed a serious potential threat of biological weapons. CTBT brought us measurable success in arresting the spread and use of nuclear weapons. Now we need strong legal instrument to arrest the misuse of biological research. We are facing invisible enemy with visible destruction. Let us find whether it is a failure of science and global governance at International Conference on Eradication of Biological and Chemical Weapons.
True, as very rightly said in the video, that is it exactly the failure of global governance, or somewhere all of us as a society we have failed? So let us try to understand, get into the details of this topic. But before we go there, we have a very special speaker for this session. We have a young dynamic student of MIT World Peace University, Zoha Patel, with us. If I may request Zoha Patel to address the gathering. Over to you, Zoha.
Good afternoon, one and all. My name is Zuha Patel, and I'm from MIT School of Economics. The origin story of COVID-19 has been much talked about, making the city of Wuhan famous for all the wrong reasons. During this time, however, another story regarding its origin gained much traction. This one stated that the virus was curated in Wuhan Institute of Technology to be used against China's enemies if the need arises. This theory was proven to be false. But what if a country actually creates a virus to harm another? We have already witnessed how an outbreak of a virus can bring the entire world to a standstill. The year 2020 began on a very tense note, with tensions reaching an all-time high between USA and Iran, putting the world on a brink of another war. The pandemic paused all the global issues, showing the world how immunocompromisation was a concern that rose above all the others. But what if this was done in the wrong way? It has been done multiple times in the past. The British using anthrax for testing during World War II is a well known incident. When we think of war, our common perception is mass destruction and people covered in blood and ashes. A bio war would be an unimaginable scenario. A war with weapons that cannot be seen, lurking and hiding in corners and attacking innocent and unsuspecting victims. Weapons that attack all with an equal malice. Extreme destruction to life with zero destruction to property. A bio war would destroy the essence of a country, its people. Wars seen before have ruined the present of countries involved, but a bio war would spell doom for the present and the future. Rising again from it would be next to impossible because of the genetic mutations that could be caused. Speaking from an economic perspective, a bio war is very cost effective compared to a regular war, as the cost of ammunition and other overheads are not included. One of the main goals of biological warfare is the undermining and destruction of economic progress and stability. The markets would collapse completely, as there would be no labor to produce essential goods and production would come to a halt. This would lead to a series of unfortunate events. The disposable income will be next to nothing and the cash flow in the economy will be nil. The losses incurred after a regular war can be salvaged, but the rampage caused by a bio war will create shock waves for the years to come, making it very difficult for the countries to compensate. The global pandemic has already brought the world to its knees. The high and mighty Europe and USA crashed in the face of adversity due to gross underpreparedness. This is still the entire world against a virus. But what if this was a war? The scenario would be much darker. It is essential to inculcate among, among young and budding scientists moral ethics. No individual, I repeat, no individual needs to be delegated that much power or authority wherein he or she believes that they have the right to unleash harm on an individual, community, or a person, or a country, sorry. Science and technology needs to be harnessed to ensure that humanity moves forward. Using this in the wrong way could take us back many years in time with very little hope in the future. So, I'd like to conclude by saying, with great power comes great responsibility and should come with greater morality and a higher conscience. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoha. Thank you very much for that address. Thank you very much for your thoughts, and you have posed some of the good questions for this entire panel. So it's now time that we move forward in this session and the next point on agenda. But before I invite our first eminent speaker of the day, Honorable Sri Shashankji, it is my honor and privilege to introduce him to all of you. Uh, and with this, I would also like to request everyone in the speakers, we precisely have 15 minutes for each of your speech, because at the end of this session, after all your speeches are done, we have questions and answers. And believe me, we generally get flooded with questions. So we would like to keep some time in reserve for the questions and answers. So I would like to request to keep the timeline and help us to do that. And now it is indeed my honor and privilege to introduce you to our eminent speaker of this session, Honorable Sri Shashankji, former Foreign Secretary of India, India's ex-ambassador to Denmark, South Korea, and Libya. He is former Foreign Secretary of India, and he was Secretary from December 2003 to July 2004. He also served as India's ambassador to Denmark, South Korea, and Libya. He is Master of Sciences in Physics. In 1966, he joined the Indian Foreign Services. From 1968 to 71, he was 3-year Second Secretary in the city of Brussels, Belgium. From 1972-73, he was in Hanoi. 74 to 76, he was the Undersecretary in the Ministry of External Affairs of India. 76 to 79, in the Permanent Mission of India before the headquarters of United Nations, New York City. 79 to 82, Counselor in Cairo. 82 to 86, the Minister in Islamabad. And if I have to really read his entire tenure and his experience, that would probably take half of my session's time. But that surely tells you that what kind of person is present with us here today. And it is indeed my honor and privilege to invite him to address as the esteemed speaker of this session. Over to you, sir. Shashankji?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Can you hear me, Mr. Baasha?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I must congratulate Mr. Karad and his team for organizing this conference. I think otherwise also the subject is extremely important, but it has become very timely also. Because of the COVID crisis that we are following upon so many other crises which we found with the developments in science and technology. Would be listening to the very famous scientists, and I'm really looking forward. In the meantime, since I can speak about the global governance, what I would say that there are two aspects of global governance. One is that after each big war, we have tried to set up institutions to organize affairs of the world by setting up some international organizations so that people all over the world can firstly have a sense of participation, sense of fulfillment, and at the same time, they try to have some kind of rules and norms of global governance to follow. So after the First World War, since we had the League of Nations, which failed because there a small country, big country, or even minor problem, minor territorial aggression would become a
Is there any technical glitch? My technical team, if you could please.
I think there is a low bandwidth issue, sir.
At Shangji's place? Okay. We'll wait for a few minutes. Probably there's a small bandwidth issue. And this generally is the issue in when you're dealing with a lot of technology. But well, this happens even on stage. I have been witnessing some of the technical glitches. Even on stage, it happens. Sometimes your mic goes off. Sometimes your lights go off. So these kind of things with technology would keep on happening. So we'll probably have to deal with them. So let's wait for a second or more. So and let's wait for Shashankji to come back. But let me share with you, my dear audience with us. Let me share with you. I still have not started receiving any questions in my Q&A box. So make sure that you reach out to the right place. I repeat, you go to the questions and answers box, find my name, Gautam Bapat, there, and post your questions individually to me so that I'll be able to take them. So please, if you post your messages in the chat box, I'll not be able to take them. So please note that. Nileshji, if Shashankji is still having trouble, I think we can move ahead with the next point on agenda and come back. Have you contacted him over phone?
Sir, he's rejoining.
Okay, so let's wait for a second or more. Thank you.
Bapat sir, we can go ahead for the next.
Yeah, I think that is a better option.
Yeah,
I think
please.
let's move ahead because these technological hurdles would keep coming, and definitely once he's back with us, we can definitely request him to join us back. So thank you. So with this little technical glitch, I'm sure that everyone in the audience would also understand this is something beyond our control. So let's move ahead, and the next person whom I'm going to invite to speak from this for this session in this session is the person who's let me be very, very clear in the beginning itself that I'm introducing him to all of you just for the sake of formality, because everyone in this country knows him. Everyone in this country knows his work, knows his name. So introducing him is just a mere formality. So let me take the privilege of that formality and introduce all of you to Padma Vibhushan, Honorable Dr. G. Madhavan Nairji, former chairman of ISRO, secretary to the Department of Space, Government of India, and chairman of Space Commission. Dr. G. Madhavan Nairji was born on 31st of October 1943, was the former chairman of Indian Space Research Organization and secretary to the Department of Space, Government of India. He has also been the chairman of the Space Commission and chairman of the governing body of the Antrix Corporation, Bangalore. He was the chairman of the Board of Governors of Indian Institute of Technology, Patna, until he stepped down due to his involvement in the radio spectrum bandwidth thing. Dr. Nair was awarded the Padma Vibhushan, India's second highest civilian honor, on 26th January 2009. My friends, Dr. Nair is a leading technologist in the field of rocket systems and has made significant contribution to the development of multi-stage satellite launch vehicles, achieving self-reliance in independent access to the space using indigenous technologies. Dr. Nair and his entire team have advanced their work in the face of several challenges in the regime of technology denials by the adoption of several innovations and novel technologies to realize world-class launch vehicle system. India today has the pride of place among the space-faring nations in the launch vehicle technology and the big chunk of that success goes to Dr. G. Madhavan Nair ji. It is indeed our honor and privilege to have you here today with us, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. And without taking a single minute more, I request you to kindly address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the nice words of introduction. Um, Professor Vishwanath Karanji, other fellow panelists and participants. It's indeed my privilege to be amongst this August gathering and talk something about the invisible enemy and visible destruction. Of course, we are referring to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is really playing havoc all over the world. As I was introduced as a specialist in the rocket science, and using a rocket to kill a virus is an overdoing the job. So perhaps I will not attempt that. But let me share some of my thoughts on this occasion. The first of all, let me make it clear. As during my course of talk, I will try to explain how science has come to the rescue of such pandemics in the past, and where we stand today, and what can be done further. Of course, the governance part, the local, the national, as well as international governance part is a very important aspect. Other speakers will be covering on that. So I will not touch upon those things. Uh, as you know, the pandemic of this magnitude has happened right through the history of humankind. The first one, which is reported but not recorded properly, is what originated in China. Something like one third the population of the city has been wiped out with a strange fever for which they didn't have any clue. Later, we know the Roman Empire, they were affected by the flu, which came in from Egypt. The carrier for those viruses was rats. Apparently, the Roman Empire wanted their respects to the Egyptians to pay their tax and other things in kind. And along with the grain baskets, these rats also came, and that started spreading the disease in the entire city. Something like one third the population was lost at the time. Again, if you look at it, there have been almost every 100 years, one pandemic or other was happening right across the world. Notable among them, when the Europeans started occupying the Central America as well as the North American parts, it is not their skills in the warhood which won them those territories. It is perhaps a dangerous virus which some of the sailors carried to that place. And the native people, they were not at all immune to such system. They were having a very plain, simple life, and they didn't have any attack of virus or bacteria. And that way, they were weak. And because of that one single reason, nearly 90% of the native population were killed in the course of 10 years or so. So you can see it's an indirect application as a weapon. Nobody knew that this will happen, but it happened. So it is right to assume that more than the chemical weapons which people are possessing, the biological weapons can be the most dangerous one, especially those which has got a characteristics to multiply and dwell on animals or human beings. So that is the most dangerous part of it. And I'm sure nobody will attempt such a thing deliberately. Unfortunately, the Spanish flu, which broke out about 100 years back, it lasted for almost 3 years, and something like 1 crore people were dead as a result of that. And it took almost 5 years before anybody could come out with a proper treatment procedure for it. But after that, there are variants of these has appeared all over the globe. the virus which is there, it mutates into different forms and attack the human beings. And quite often it is a person-to-person contact, and that creates a spread. Whereas there are several instances in which the animals, pets as well as the birds and other things become the carriers. So such situation is something which we have to guard against. As in the introductory speech, it was pointed out, no sensible country will get into that kind of process. So it is very hard to believe that the China has initiated the spread of this virus from their continent, because they themselves know the potential of these things. And in fact, we must congratulate them. As soon as they found this, they got into a quick quarantine process. The entire stadiums in the city has been converted into quarantine, as well as the hospital beds. And the net result is they were able to contain the loss of life to the bare minimum. It's a very good example to cite. But we know that after all this process, again the second wave is started appearing, and that is something which has to worry about. Now let us look at the advanced countries, the so-called advanced countries. Of course, you know that Italy has been the hotbed for a long time, maybe from December onwards, and they have the heaviest loss in life. Then again came the US, the country where it has got the latest facilities for medical care. There is no dearth of ventilators or the other equipment which is needed for this. And their knowledge in the medical field is extremely high. But in spite of that, they top the list in terms of the number of patients affected as well as the number of deaths. In fact, it is surprising to note that they had something like 10% death rate. That is very alarming, because the global average is only 3.5%. Now, that perhaps one can look at, there is a failure of the governance. In fact, it was reported that initially nobody took seriously this infection. And secondly, the treatment facilities there, everything is commercialized. For even a simple test, you have to cough up something like $3,000 or $4,000. And poor people there cannot afford. Why poor people? Even an average person cannot afford even that test, leave alone the hospitalization. Hospitalization called for all kinds of insurance formalities, etc., to be completed. By the time those formalities are completed, the patient will become a critical. So we can see that there is a total failure of management of the health system in a country like US. But we can say, other examples where it has succeeded. You take the success rate in Kerala, the small state in this country, and initially it was less than 100. Recently, in the last couple of weeks, when we have opened up the borders for the foreign people to come, etc., the spread has become slightly larger, but still it is less than 1,000. The credit goes to the public health service. This is something which was started in the Maharaja's regime as a social service. Nobody need pay for any medical service those days, and he has established good facilities for treatment of small ailments as well as the serious issues. And also he encouraged use of vaccination and so many things nearly 100 years back. That tradition is being continued even today. The healthcare system is managed by the government by and large. Of course, there are private players today, maybe about 30% of the facilities are owned by the private players. But this COVID treatment, government has taken on itself. They have invested in the hospital beds as well as the treatment procedure. And I must tell you, it goes to the credit of the health workers here in the state that the recovery rate is the highest. In fact, much about 10 times better than the global average. So it shows that the absence of a good governance and presence of a good governance can make all the difference in this kind of scenario. Now let's see. In the past history, whenever such pandemics occur, they continue for several years before a cure is found. Of course, you know the vaccination which came into existence that builds up the body resistance and so on. And so many medicines which has come into the market. The success stories are in the malaria, the anti-flu injections which are being given. And again, the cholera and other diseases, they are well under control. Tuberculosis has been totally eradicated and so on. So, but it has taken 5 to 10 years time frame. Compared to that, I think scientists are doing a good job these days. You look at what happened since December to now, almost a span of 6 months. Initially, people were groping in the dark as to what is the cause and what is the effect on the human being and how such a fatality occur. It took some time to understand. But today, the phenomena is understood how the virus multiplies within the body and how it affects the bloodstream, and in turn, how it affects the internal organs and so on. So, naturally, once you find the cause, the remedy is very close. They tried some conventional medicine to start with. Now, there are a couple of people who have come out with sophisticated formulations which can be used for this purpose. So, that's really a success story, I would say. But ultimate solution for this particular coronavirus is only a vaccine to be found out. Here, India has been doing in the past very well. In fact, conventional type of virals and bacteria and other things, resistant vaccines are built in the country and exported to nearly 100 countries in the world. So India has been supporting this. R&D efforts here also has been mounted in a big way, and the results are visible. But we have to go through a process of trials and validation. It may take maybe 5 or 6 months. By the time we will have a handle on it. But in all such research, the global cooperation is something what is needed. Today, India is one country, we are not bothered about the competition, commercialization, making money out of a severe incident like this. Whereas most of the Western countries, this is taken as a commercial opportunity and they exploit it. So that situation should change. This is something for the whole humankind. The concerned people have to join hands in a collaborative way. Then the results will be faster and we should be able to solve them. India government has done an extremely good step in doing the lockdown, though it is at the cost of economy. But Modi ji has really understood the situation and he has introduced the economic reforms parallelly. So we'll be able to spring back. Many of the economics specialists have told that we will be able to recover this blow very soon and back on the rails, and our growth rate will be positive before end of the year. So this is a very positive sign. So a good governance at national level, state level, and global level. Global governance, there are problems, regional separations, then the vested interests of the multinationals, and so on. All these complicated affairs. So perhaps that's one issue which needs to be addressed. But I pray that no, this kind of virus or bacteria will not fall on the wrong hands of the terrorists. And I'm sure we will have a bright future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you very much for enlightening us. Definitely, we would get back to you for many, many questions and answers. But before that, I just got an input that Honorable Shri Shashank ji is back with us. Sir, do we have you? Shashank ji?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much indeed. I must congratulate the MIT for setting up this conference and getting some very senior scientists here, along with a few my colleague, Ambassador Trigunia, and I am also participating in this event. I'm really looking forward to hear from our scientist friends as to what would be the scientific method of dealing with these invisible enemies and the visible effects, the destructive effects which are there, how to take care of them. As far as the global governance is concerned, I must tell you that every time there is a war or aggression, people think in terms of bringing out international institutions to have more orderly affairs and to take care of the expectations of the ordinary people of the world. And that is how, after the First World War, we had the League of Nations, which did not succeed because even the minutest aggression by smaller countries also could lead the whole world to total standstill. And therefore, when after the Second World War, it was felt that we must set up another organization together with several other ancillary institutions which are set up at the international level, which could take care of culture, science, of health, food security, and for monetary security, etc. So all those institutions are set up. But now we find, after about 70 years, that this has also not been very successful, because we find that instead of 50 members, which had initially joined, let's say, the United Nations, now there are about 200 members of the United Nations. And most of the members who are controlling the affairs in the UN are those which are directly not affected by the visible destructions. They may be causes of the invisible or visible activities which are leading to destruction. So therefore, we have now seen that there are demands for reforming the international systems, whether it is the UN Security Council, whether it is the IMF, whether it's the World Bank, whether they are the institutions like WHO. Recently, even the Americans have said that they would withdraw from WHO because it's not an effective organization. So these are the kind of issues that if we are having rule-bound, norms-bound international institutions for global governance, ultimately what happens that we lose out the purpose of setting up these institutions, because everyone is trying to prove that he's in the right. He's following the rules and regulations and the articles of the charters of the various institutions. Most of the time is spent either in justifying one's activities or in blaming the others for the wrongful done. So therefore, we have to now think of an alternative method. And COVID is, I think, is one area which has now brought us face to face with the reality once again. After every 100 years or so, we have been facing various pandemics. And this time, which it has come, we are, of course, trying to put pressure on the Wuhan people to tell us, and the Chinese people, what were the main source. Were they experimenting along with some other countries about various antiviral devices, and then suddenly something went wrong? Or was it because of their eating habits that these viruses were shifting from animal kingdom to the human beings, as had happened in the past also? So therefore, what do we feel? We see that, well, global governance must now be based on a few principles. One of them would be, what are your global common objectives? What are your views as to what kind of life do you want to lead, where everybody on this world can have a meaningful life, can feel that, yes, they can look after their interests and at the same time interests of other people. Now, India has had that old tradition where we do not say that we have to control nature, but we want to live along with nature, in harmony with nature. We also have been saying that the whole world, for good people, should be like a family. It should not be that we try to take over the others, either nature or other people who are poorer or who may be less fortunate than us, but we should try to see that things are done for everybody in this world. So I think there are few messages which have gone out of India, and our Prime Minister Modi has been quite active right from the beginning of this COVID crisis in setting up institutional exchanges with the leaders of other countries. So that is one way to find out how we can reach common objectives and what are the methods whereby we can achieve them. Now, India has not been successful. We have had the lockdowns, which have delayed the onset of the very wide-ranging features of COVID in the society. But simultaneously, what we found that some of our neighboring countries, they continued with their terrorist activities, promoting terrorism, because they felt that this is the right time when they can really go ahead, when the Americans are so busy with their own internal affairs, and they want to move out because the forthcoming elections, they want to move out of Afghanistan. So why not set up the terrorist bases in those areas where direct responsibility cannot be attributed to our immediate neighboring countries. So that is one, that India had to face that issue. And secondly, we found that because China has come under tremendous pressure from the Americans and from so many other international organizations to come clean as to how this COVID virus was spread, and they are under pressure. They are reacting to that in the way that Chinese or a big country, big civilization have to react. That is hitting out at each other. So they are being very tough with Taiwan, with Hong Kong, with Australia, with Japan, and now with India. So we have to keep in mind that all these problems which occur, they don't come in ones and singles and doubles. They come all in one go. So we have to be ready in this global governance that we are trying to have. We have to be ready for that and make sure that whatever principles we try to develop are acceptable to everyone. I mean, with China, for example, we have signed so many agreements, so many international agreements that we should come to peaceful resolution of disputes. We should not have any violent activities. They have not succeeded. With Pakistan, we have signed so many agreements, still we have not succeeded. So therefore, the question comes of trust. Question comes of, do we have similar objectives in mind? We have so many times we have talked about Asia becoming the growth engine for the whole world. Asia being old civilizations being there, we should be able to somehow find common methods, regional setups, inter-regional setups, so that we are able to set up examples for other countries. Will we be able to do that? At least if we can't do it together between India and China, at least China should try to do it with other Asian countries, and India should also try to build up those relations with other Asian countries. I don't think this is the right time for us to withdraw from the global dynamics and say that, no, we will do everything on our own now, because we find that the world is very bad. People are not moving towards the issues relating to climate change, issues about pollution, issues about the cyber attacks, etc. So therefore, we would now like to take care of our interests. America was, of course, the first one to start with this idea of America first. And therefore, now gradually each and every single country is following in that direction. So where does that leave us? So these are the challenges before us, that global governance has to be based on individual countries' governance based on certain principles which are beneficial for everybody within that country, and also takes into account the interests of the neighboring countries, which are some kind of norms are being followed, civilized norms are being followed. And then we should try to build up a network of sub-regional, regional, inter-regional, and then global institutions. And there, I feel that it is not necessary just to have such rigid institutions whereby everybody is trying to prove that they are in the right and everybody else is in the wrong, because that doesn't work out. I think what is happening is the Americans, who were the kingpins in the post-World War system, now they are finding that somehow their own internal social frictions are creating difficulties. And they have an election coming up in the next few months. They have not been able to, as Professor Madhavan Nair mentioned, that they did not really succeed fully in containing the ill effects of COVID. So therefore, then there are social frictions within a society, the problems occur. And so the Americans are trying to also, like the Chinese, are trying to hit out at the people outside, and they want to withdraw from the international frameworks. So these are the challenges before us for the future. I hope that in this case, rather than money, deciding money, power, I think if we can come up with this idea that civilized values should also form part of the relationships among different countries, I think we might be able to find a new base for the global governance, which will be accepted by people by voluntarily joining it, rather than as a kind of a forced acceptance of these international governance principles. Thank you very much indeed. I would be
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you very much for joining us again in spite of some technical difficulties you had in the beginning. Thank you very much, because it was really, really important for us to understand your views. Next, we have with us the eminent speaker for this session, Ambassador Shri Anil K. Triguniachi, and it is indeed my honor and privilege to introduce him to all of you. Honorable Shri Anil K. Triguniachi, senior diplomat, former ambassador to Kingdom of Jordan, Libya, and Malta. Ambassador Anil Triguniachi has been a career diplomat, and he has served in the Indian mission at Cote d'Ivoire, Bangladesh, Mongolia, USA, Russia, Sweden, Nigeria, Libya, Malta, and Jordan. In the Ministry of External Affairs, he worked in the Economic, West Asia, and North Africa, Gulf, and the Consular divisions. He also served as the Director General Joint Secretary for the Gulf and Hajj divisions in the Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi. Thereafter, Mr. Triguniath worked as the Deputy Chief of Mission in the rank of Ambassador in the Embassy of India at Moscow. Prior to his superannuation in May 2016, he served as an ambassador of India to Jordan and Libya and High Commissioner to Malta, June 2012 to May 2016. Presently, Ambassador Triguniachi is the president of MIICCIA, the Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture. He is the distinguished fellow at Vivekananda International Foundation, India, and advisor at the Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs, Kathmandu, as well as the visiting fellow at Nepal Institute of International Cooperation and Engagements. Sir, we are really honored to have you here today with us. It is indeed our honor and privilege to listen to you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Bapat. I hope you can listen to me, hear me.
Yes, absolutely. Please go ahead.
Good, thank you. Esteemed panelists, Padma Vibhushan Shri Madhavan Nayarji, my senior colleague, Ambassador Shashank, and Dr. Jennifer Megby, and other esteemed guests and people from the MIT WPU. It is an honor to be part of this distinguished panel, and it is possible that what I'm going to say may be overlapping or may be repetitive, but I'll all the same try to underscore what the esteemed previous panelists have said. I would like to express my gratitude to esteemed Professor Karaji and Mr. Rahul Karar for this kind invitation to me to share my thoughts on this very timely issue, as the world has been afflicted by this corona pandemic that is continuing to take its toll on the human lives and has made all the countries dysfunctional and economies virtually at a standstill. This appears to be the phenomenon of destruction that visits us nearly at an interval of a century. But nothing seems to have changed, and despite all the scientific progress, we seem to be as helpless as ever. But we have seen in the past and now that this pandemic needs to be contained. We have heard that the big countries, the rich countries, the powerful countries who are supposed to have the best healthcare system have really fallen like a pack of cards. The systems have failed. The systems have failed precisely because there was not adequate attention given to or the investments made into the healthcare system. In my view, the health should be treated like the defense of a nation. Because if your people are not strong enough, they are not healthy enough, it is impossible for people to continue like that. We have also heard several theories when the China bashing is going on. It has started off with President Trump saying that it's China virus. And when we saw the China virus, he eventually talked to President Xi and he said it's a Wuhan virus. And only 2 days ago, he again came up with a new theory, it's a Kung Fu virus. So what we are seeing is that globally, there is the whole complete disorder exists rather than any order or the global government. And unfortunately, China, which is the second biggest economy and arguably the next in line for power with a global outreach and footprint, has undoubtedly deceived the world and caused the exceptional human suffering. It has become synonymous with non-reliability and lack of transparency, and that is very sad. Moreover, the aftermath has been met by arrogance and world warrior diplomacy, if you will call it diplomacy at all. Chinese leaders seem to think that misplaced bravado, interventionist policies, and aggressive posturing across the aisle will help it stall further damage. Far from it. The world is beginning to realize the true colors of the Chinese outreach. Trust and faith in its leadership has been decimated in no time, and they are only responsible for it. It is not to say that other superpowers have always behaved responsibly, be it USA or the then Soviet Union or Russia, or for that matter, the empires of the past. We can easily recount the disastrous Iraq war, Libya war, where the intervention has taken place under the garb of finding some kind of uh, weapons of mass destruction or trying to contain or indulge into regime change. What has happened to those? Those things have been achieved. The regime change has been achieved, but the instability has caused the biggest problem for today for the humankind, and that is the terrorism, which Ambassador Shashank also referred to. Now, as far as the question is about the science or whether science is going to be the main has failed us or the global governance has failed us, I would like to say that if we say that science has failed us, I don't think that's correct. I think the man has failed the science. I remember from our childhood, whenever we always used to see the thing that there is a competition between science and the man. Who's going to rule whom? Now, if we become subservient to the science and create a Frankenstein, it is not the fault of the science per se. It is the morality that has been lacking in our behavior, in our approach, in our rogue status of certain countries. And therefore, it is extremely important that certain, and which Mr. Nambiar also mentioned, and those are the things that need to be brought in to do that. But it becomes more relevant today, because today we are in this era of AI-driven industrial revolution where the science is going to be, or the even the day-to-day lives are going to be governed by the artificial intelligence. So it is going to be extremely important that we use caution, an extreme caution, and there should be some kind of supervision, international supervision with that. Similarly, we have seen that over time, international convergences that used to exist, because we have seen that several organizations have come up. They have been undermined by those who are supposed to be its upholders. Agreements have been loopholed, and multiple multilateral organizations, including WHO, World Health Organization, World Trade Organization, United Nations, which are an intrinsic part of the global governance, they have been systematically compromised unless they faithfully serve as the instruments of their foreign policy of the big country. Hence, there is a crying need for a viable alternative, or at least the approach, if the accused players continue to remain as important. For it to succeed, it is important to reinstitute transparency, verifiable collective monitoring mechanism, accountability, and fear of violation of the prescribed code of conduct. It should not only be applicable to poor and the underdeveloped, but to those powerful countries who have taken upon themselves the task to let an international multilateral agreement to be established in the first place. UN has failed in many respects, but let's hope during the 75th anniversary year, it will be able to redeem itself. Again, let us not forget, it is the sum of its constituents. Allow me to talk about the current dynamic and contestation between US and China a little bit, another middle or sparring power. It is important to remember that unlike the Cold War bipolarity, the one with China is full of strategic, friend-foe, and competition-interdependence contradictions. It is predicated on US-China trade war and COVID-19 triggered variant of PLA's unrestricted warfare, which could lead to Cold War 2.0 of a different kind. The internal political imperatives and hyper-nationalistic ambitions of China under Emperor Xi are key determinants of it. The extent, pace, and success of economic decoupling and the containment of China's expansionism is crucial. If a US-China modus vivendi eludes long enough and Europe joins in, it could herald decades of contestation between them for military and economic power, ideological and political influence for shaping the 21st century world order. The proverbial Asian century may remain stunted as India and China rivalry takes a new dimension. Moreover, powerful non-state actors, in concert with their benefactors, have become more potent and could trigger much bigger threat and dangerous conflicts by clandestinely acquiring weapons of mass destruction, including the bio and chemical weapons, in connivance with their irresponsible states. In India nowadays, we are hearing the clarion calls of self-reliance and boycott Chinese products, etc. And nothing wrong with that. But let us remember that economy will probably be the single most factor to decide the global leadership yet again in the 21st century. China has outstripped the US as a premier trading nation with huge trade surpluses and has become a global manufacturing hub, driving regional and global supply chains. With a GDP of over $14 trillion, it is 5 times that of ours. It ranks third in voting power after US and Japan in the World Bank and other Bretton Woods institution. With its inclusion in the SDR basket of IMF, the RMB has become an important international currency. China's foreign exchange reserves of US dollar 3.3 trillion, of which it has about 1.1 trillion of US debt, provides it further leverage. It has started creating its own institutions like AIB. Hence, viable policy choices needs to be made. We cannot discount the fact that China makes the largest investment in R&D today and new technologies, while even stealing them. But then they are also producing high quality scientific research papers, which are the highest in number anywhere in the world. And if you were to believe Apple and others, they find Chinese workers far more tech savvy and efficient. What I would like to say is that while the US disengages and President Trump continues with his America First, or a policy which is anti-multilateral institutions per se, because he has tried to opt out of major institutions or trying to undermine them if they don't serve his myopic purpose, which is going to be a biggest. Now, who's going to get into that? In that, the country that is currently not being liked that much, that is currently being accused, might fill that gap. Will that be good for the international system? Remains to be seen. So far, the indications are it is not so much. New systems are emerging. New equations are emerging. Like recently, you must have heard that President Trump invited India to join the G7, along with 3 other countries, South Korea, Australia, and Russia. While he was saying that, he invited the countries currently, which is the Western countries, have become outdated in their approaches. So therefore, the new kind of Cold War scenarios are being developed under which you might see different equations of the different kinds of countries coming in. India, I would say, as I was mentioned earlier, that India has been trying its best through its soft power diplomacy, through its heritage of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And it has tried even during the COVID-19 era, times, despite its own constraints for having a very large population and requirements, India has provided the support and the medicines and all to more than 120 countries in the world, including the big countries like the USA and the Germany and everybody else. In fact, if you remember, the Brazilian president even called it Sanjeevani Booty when we had sent it and praised Prime Minister Modi about that. This is extremely important, that to create that kind of an aura about you, that is a genuine affection for the country, that gives you the moral authority to propose something new that is going to be valued by everyone else, and you will not find too many people. We will always have a Pakistan or a China or someone else opposing it, but we'll always have. Likewise, in the SAARC, Prime Minister Modi himself started this meeting again, which was almost a moribund organization, and created a SAARC fund. India gave about $10 million for the COVID fund for SAARC countries. Then for the G20, he tried to go ahead and do it. Similarly, like for the Gavi, which is the International Vaccine Alliance, we became part of it. Now this year, as the United Nations celebrates 75th anniversary, fortunately, India has become a non-permanent member of this organization for the year 21-22, and which is going to be an extremely important time for us, where we can advocate moderation, dialogue, and rule of law. And India's principal approach is going to be an effective response to international terrorism, reforming the multilateral system, comprehensive approach to international peace and security, promoting technology with a human touch as a driver of solution. I will close by recounting the 5 S's.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Prime Minister Modi has mentioned as to what will be our approach in the global governance, essentially in the United Nations. One is Samman, respect for everyone. Unless you do that, you cannot move ahead. Samvad, the dialogue, which is extremely important. Sahyog, cooperation, and Shanti, peace, to create conditions for universal samriddhi, that's prosperity. India's overall objective during this tenure will be called norms, that is new orientation for a reformed multilateral system of governance. But we have seen what our minister also said, that the challenge today is not of concepts and norms, but equally out of that of their practice. Thank you once again for inviting me, and I hope.
Thank you. No, sir, definitely. It's just that I always want to take more and more questions, because there are many in the audience, those who would like to ask questions. But thank you very much, sir, for taking time out. And I request you all to be there till our questions and answers. It is now indeed my honor and privilege to introduce you to the next eminent speaker of this session, Honorable Dr. Jennifer McBay, the Senior Fellow for International Security, Federation of American Scientists, FAS. Madam Jennifer McBay is a Fellow for International Security at FAS. Ms. McBay has worked on international security, non-proliferation, and arms control issue at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, the Conference on Disarmament, and the United Nations. As a fellow of CSIS, she has led the projects on US-UK Nuclear Cooperation, Asian Trilateral Nuclear Dialogue, 21st Century Nuclear Issue, and the CTBT, and has worked on the Strengthening the Global Partnership, European Trilateral Nuclear Dialogues, reduction of US forces in Europe, among others. Previously, she was responsible for the negotiations on the CTBT in the CD, as well as the group of scientific experts that designated the core monitoring system of the treaty. She managed to implement the verification mark at the CTBTO at Vienna. Madam McBay served as the Secretary of the Biological Weapons Conventions Review Conference, the United Nations Special Commission on Iraq, the Convention on Environmental Modifications Techniques Review Conference. Madam, the person having such kind of experience and coming to us and being part of this particular convention is really, really a very, very proud moment for all of us. Thank you very much for joining. Let me share with you, everyone in the audience, it is, if I'm not wrong, somewhere around 5 a.m. She is in United States, Washington, D.C., and it is 5 a.m. there. And she has joined us right all the way from there. We have, I'm happy to share with you to be part of this important convention. We also have participation from probably across the globe. We have, if I'm not wrong, Case Sitaram and Dr. Lakshmi, all the way from Tokyo, Japan, also with us. And it is indeed our honor and privilege that you all are here with us. Without taking a single more minute, I hand over the control to you, ma'am. Over to you.
Well, thank you so very much for your kind introduction. I assume you can hear me, sir.
Absolutely, loud and clear, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Very good. Greetings from Washington, D.C., where it is indeed very early in the morning. I'm so pleased to talk to all of you from here. I would first like to thank Dr. Karad and Dr. Jain, as well as all the team there and the moderator, MIT WPU, for inviting me to be on this very important panel. It's too bad we can't be together, but you are, although you're very far away, this modern technology Zooms us together. So people around the world are alarmed by the new pandemic of the coronavirus, COVID-19, that is even now still spreading dangerously from person to person in many places around the globe. I'm not looking at my PowerPoints, but maybe you could advance to number 2, please. As you know, COVID-19 symptoms can range from mild or no symptoms to severe illness and all too often death, not just among older people, I should remind you. And when I checked a few days ago, India had thousands of cases, just like here in the US, we have many more. I don't need to tell you the numbers, I'm sure you know, and the numbers are going up, like here in the US. India, unfortunately, ranks 4th in the world for the virus after Brazil, the US, and Russia. So this is a very scary time. And as your conference organizer wrote to me, the debate on coronavirus being man-made vis-a-vis a natural phenomenon will continue. But it does highlight the core issue of our inability to cope with any horrifying pandemic at this scale. It has also brought to the fore, unlike ever before, the need for international cooperation on all fronts. And I'm going to talk to you about that soon. The coronavirus is believed to have been transmitted from animal to human at a wet market in Wuhan, China. And as we've heard, some people believe that it is a virus that escaped from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Others have said that the US Army brought the virus to Wuhan. And in this regard, there is significant danger in the disinformation that has been spread. Some think of it as information warfare. My organization, Federation of American Scientists, is working on a project to combat the disinformation with scientific experts on hand to answer questions from the public. Please go to the next slide. The rapid advances in technology, the increased global capability to create and engineer pathogens that could cause a pandemic, and the influence of influential actors, both states and non-state actors, in biological weapons have increased the risk of a catastrophic biological event. Worldwide, animal-borne infectious diseases that jump to humans, such as COVID-19, are on the rise. An outbreak that begins in a remote village such as Manfuete in Congo can reach major cities on any continent in less than 36 hours, blossoming into a global crisis. And so the dramatic advances in biological and the life sciences can offer many improvements in medicine, agriculture, and other areas. For example, new gene editing techniques. I'm sorry, could you progress to slide 4, which shows picture of an Ebola patient, and then slide 5, which shows patients who have smallpox and anthrax. And I could now talk about new gene editing methods such as CRISPR have significant biosecurity implications, which can be put to good use as well as bad. Please, the slide that shows CRISPR, that's slide 6. Scientists have learned how to harness CRISPR technology in the lab to make precise changes in the genes of organisms as diverse as fruit flies, fish, and even human cells. This tool can enhance understanding of infectious diseases, disease mechanisms, and in treatment of genetic disorders. Such tools might be used, for example, to control insect pests that spread disease and damage crops. However, policymakers are concerned that the low cost and increased availability of such techniques could lead individuals or non-state actors with limited knowledge of safety and security precautions to produce an enhanced pathogen to inflict harm on civilian populations. It would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to know where it came from. Further, there have been warnings that terrorist groups like ISIS and violent transnational groups could gain access to biological agents or deadly diseases like Ebola, which killed thousands in Congo and other countries, or Zika, and use them to create weapons of mass destruction. Also, the facilities that hold potentially dangerous bacteria, toxins, or viruses are sometimes not secured, and rapid developments in biotechnology could lead to the development of new biological warfare agents. A global biological catastrophic event would cause tremendous loss of life, societal instability, prolonged damage to governments and economies, damage to international relations, and would threaten global security. While greater attention has been paid to nuclear and cyber threats, the 9/11 attacks with anthrax and this recent pandemic are making people think more about the possibilities of biological warfare. Biological weapon programs are easy to hide. They could be developed clandestinely in a lab relating to developing vaccines or smaller environment. Hundreds of labs around the world sell biological agents for legitimate research, but these are the same substances that can be used for weapons research. Many believe that these materials are difficult for lone actors or terrorists to handle. However, states have a greater capacity to develop such weapons. Biological agents have been used as weapons since ancient times, as you heard by a couple of the previous speakers, and about 25 countries are believed to have developed biological weapons programs over the last 100 years. However, other than the Soviet Union and the US, most of them were not very advanced and did not last long. So what are the international efforts in cooperation and governance on bioweapons? Could you please turn to the next slide, number 7. The Biological Weapons Convention outlaws biological arms. It entered into force in 1975. It is the first multilateral treaty that banned an entire category of weapons of mass destruction. So as you can see, parties to the Biological Weapons Convention agree not to develop acquire, or retain agents, toxins, or delivery systems for non-peaceful purposes. I repeat a little bit of this. The BWC, that's the acronym, Biological Weapons Convention, BWC, forbids states parties from developing, producing, stockpiling, or otherwise acquiring biological agents or toxins for peaceful purposes. It obligates states parties to destroy or divert to peaceful purposes their existing stocks of prohibited items. It forbids states parties from transferring prohibited items to anyone or otherwise helping in the manufacture or acquisition of biological weapons. It commits states parties to cooperate in solving any problems through consultation and in carrying out any investigation initiated by the UN Security Council. It commits states parties to provide assistance to others that have been attacked using biological weapons. And importantly, it protects the rights of states parties to exchange equipment, materials, and scientific and technological information for peaceful purposes in order to enhance their economic and technological development. So the treaty has been successful in building a broad agreement that the life sciences should only be used for benign purposes and constructing a strong norm against the use of disease as a means of warfare. Please go to the next slide, number 8. With 183 states parties, membership in the BWC is not yet universal, yet no state claims that biological weapons are a legitimate means of national defense. Even countries that are thought to be pushing biological weapons, such as the DPRK, do not propose that they have a right to use those weapons or that biological weapons are a valid means of strategic deterrence. So as you can see, there are 10 states that have not signed the convention, 4 states that have signed but not ratified. Tanzania is the most recent one that has ratified. It was on that list that had signed but recently ratified. Although North Korea has ratified the convention, experts believe that it has a stockpile of biological as well as nuclear and chemical weapons. Thus, the BWC is not a universal convention. However, a number of countries joined in recent years, and many parties that have not enacted necessary legislation to implement the treaty's provisions nationally are working on those efforts. And the agreement is seen as a strong obstacle to the development and use of biological weapons. So there have been a number of instances of countries claiming that others have violated the terms of the convention, such as Russia, Cuba, Iran, Libya, and the US. In a 2017 report on compliance with the BWC, the United States indicated that Russia had outstanding compliance issues with the BWC, and Russia has claimed more recently that the US has violated the convention at a biolab funded by the US in Georgia. This leads me to the point that there is no formal verification regime to monitor compliance with the Biological Weapons Convention. The treaty regime mandates that states parties consult with one another and cooperate bilaterally or multilaterally to solve compliance concerns. It also allows states parties to lodge a complaint, with the UN Security Council if they believe that other member states are violating the convention. The Security Council can investigate complaints, but this power has never been invoked. As you likely know, the Security Council voting rights give the permanent 5 nations, China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, veto power over Security Council decisions, including those of conduct, to conduct BWC investigations. And by the way, congratulations to India for becoming a non-permanent member. This is very, very exciting news for India. States parties tried to negotiate a verification protocol beginning in the 1990s, but this effort ended in 2001 when the United States rejected it. Many non-aligned countries in particular still call for the negotiations on a verification protocol to continue. Please go to the next slide, slide number 9.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have almost 20 questions I have received. I'm sure
I will be done very soon. I'll be done very
sure.
soon.
Thank you.
The scientific experts from the states parties hold yearly meetings to consider issues such as biosafety and biosecurity, code of conduct, and advances in science and technology. The states parties then gather towards the end of the year to consider the results from these expert meetings, and every 5 years they hold a review conference to review each article of the convention. You can go to the next slide quickly. The next meeting of experts is scheduled to be held the end of August, but it is not clear if that will take place because of COVID concerns. This would be the first opportunity for states parties to discuss the coronavirus, so it will be unfortunate if the meeting can't take place. And although the BWC does not have a dedicated organization like the IAEA or the OPCW to monitor implementation, it has these review conferences and these meetings of experts and a very small staff in Geneva. So in this regard, I'm almost finished. I just wanted to note that India has played an active role in the BWC. Recently, Ambassador Amandeep Gill served as chairman of the meeting of states parties in 2018, and India has submitted a number of very useful working papers, including one in cooperation with the US a few years ago. So the BWC seemed to be critical to international efforts to address the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and the threat posed by biological weapons, whether from governments or non-state actors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, everyone in the speaker panel. Thank you very much for putting your views. We are really honored to have you here today. And now it's time. Quickly, I would like to take all the questions. Well, let me say we have received 20 questions as of now, and according to the timeline, I have not more than 10 minutes left in my hand. So I'll not be able to take them all, but definitely few questions I would definitely love to take. The first question is coming to Jennifer, ma'am. Ma'am, the question is for you. And the question comes from Mr. Kunal Sharma, and he asks, how much realistic it is to call for a complete ban on biological and chemical weapons? Can we really have a worldwide destruction of entire stockpile with the stipulated time? Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, well, I have not dealt in this discussion with the Chemical Weapons Convention. That's a whole other legal governance instrument. They have made tremendous progress and have basically succeeded in destroying almost all chemical weapons, especially from the US and Russia. I think the US is not quite finished, but almost. I would have to check on that. And both of those countries had huge enormous quantities of weapons in stock. And so most of those have been destroyed, and it's set a very powerful norm. And I should say the Biological Weapons Convention also has established a powerful norm, even though it doesn't have a verification regime. And the reason why US withdrew, and I think other countries felt the same from a verification protocol, was because biological weapons are so easy to produce in such small places that it's very difficult to verify. But I think, yes, it is realistic.
But is it a fact that there is no ban on the research and development, though, of course, if there is a ban on use of chemical and biological weapons, but is it a fact that there is no such stringent norm to restrict the research and development of these kind of weapons? Is it a fact?
Yes, that's correct. And but there are, I know, especially in BW, efforts to curtail some publications that have really gotten into the realm of discussing what can be done with these terrible agents and pathogens. And so that's an ongoing discussion, including in the Biological Weapons Convention review meetings among our experts. And tremendous discussions about whether or not we should publish some of these articles. So if you're interested, we could discuss that further.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am, for your answer. Next question is coming for Madhavan Maya, sir. So the question is for you. And the question is from Soumya. And the question says, sir, is it a fact that China could have done much better job informing and warning us that the virus is extremely dangerous instead of downplaying it? So the question to you, sir, can China would have done a little better than what they did? Over to you, sir. Am I audible?
But the widespread has come because of the large tourist population which has landed in Wuhan, and they're traveling all over the world. That is the human contact and its spread has come only because of that. And it's simply because of the ignorance of the fact that such a human spread of this magnitude can exist. Maybe the reason that they have not come out early. But still, I think we had sufficient time. Say December onwards, it is there, and some of the countries have taken it lightly. Those symptoms were there. They thought it is just like any other flu, and started treating along those lines without looking at the cause and trying to separate the virus and so on. But India had the benefit of all this experience, and that's why probably we are doing far better than the other countries.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that input. The next question is coming for Shashank ji. Shashank ji, do we have you? Yeah. So the question to you is from Ms. Divya Bharti, and she asks, I think we have, do we have connectivity issues with Shashank ji? Technical team?
Sir, I think sir have logged in from 2 devices. If they logged out.
3 devices.
Yes.
I can see 3 devices. Okay, I think there will be some issue. Okay, I think Trigunia ji will also be able to answer the question.
Yeah.
Sir, the question is, are we human beings responsible for all these diseases and pandemics because of our international movements?
Gautam, there is going to be a problem of equal because
I understand.
keep only one line active.
But I request the team if only one line can be kept on.
And the other line should be muted if you want to keep.
Yeah, IT team, please, because I don't have these controls. IT team, please.
No, not IT team. We don't know which line Mr. Shashank is talking from. So that line he should keep active. Other line he should remove. Because
I understand. Yeah, but I can't do that from my side actually.
No, we have to request.
Only one line can be kept. From my side actually. It's echoing a lot.
Now, if they can speak.
Some Basarji, if you could please put on mute some of the devices from multiple logins.
Nilesh, can you call up and speak to Mr. Shashank right away? He has muted one. Very good.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Now if he speaks, you should be able to hear it.
Yeah. Trigunia ji, can I repeat the question for you? Trigunia ji, yeah, can I repeat the question for you?
Yes. Now they have logged in other devices. Now if they can unmute, I think there will be no issue now.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Anyways, the time is running out from my hands. I have less than 4 minutes left. So I'll take this quick last question for Trigunia ji and I'll move ahead. Sir, Anil Trigunia ji, the question is for you. Do we humans are actually responsible for all these diseases and pandemics?
Well, as you know that, yes, in fact, the human is the worst animal. despite the intelligence it has been given. But everywhere now, can you tell me that Brazil, for example, had very few cases in the beginning, and today it is number one because they refuse to recognize it as some kind of a pandemic. So that is the problem. So when we do not take precautions, while doing scientific research, when we do not read the warnings that are coming our way, there have been this coronavirus is not the first virus in its line. We had the SARS, we had Zika, we had other viruses. So there is always a warning. I mean, nature warns you. Secondly, we are always creating some kind of a disequilibrium in our universe, and that also tends to have its own toll and everything. The leaders often, I mean, President Trump, for example, used to recognize this as a major problem, and when it went out of hand because of the elections, he's looking at something very irresponsible, just blaming China all the time. And as others have said, you cannot do like that. So I would say that it is the humans, and of course, humans have to learn how to live with it. But to say that these kind of viruses exist and this has happened ever since. Now, there will always be a certain conflict with certain viruses, and that will be there. But it is for the humans to grow up in their intelligence to find the ways to live with it and to contain it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that input. And now, as I'm running absolutely short of time, I would quickly go ahead and request my technical team if they could show us the resolution for this particular session. Meanwhile, let me share with everyone in the panel that this has been the tradition of this conference, that we pose a question to everyone in the audience and we try and understand from them that what exactly is their view on this particular topic. So here comes the resolution. After I read the resolution, my friends, you will see a polling, you can say, window on your screen where you'd be able to respond to this particular resolution through yes or no. So let me read the resolution for you. We, the participants at the International Conference on Eradication of Biological and Chemical Weapons, demand to the United Nations should create a body under WHO on the lines of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, to investigate, monitor, and destroy any activities related to the biowarfare. An annual submission of the compliance report must be made mandatory for each state party to the 1972 Biological Weapons Convention, BWC. So this is what we are trying to understand from all of you. So your voting lines will be up soon.
Gautam, let me please come in for a minute, and my apologies. Can we request Senior Sir Karad Sir is there, if he can just speak for 2 minutes and help us conclude, so that then we can do the resolution after that.
Sure. Fine. I request if Honorable Founder, Professor Dr. Vishwanath Karad, sir, if he could please say a few words and address the gathering. Over to you, sir. Do we have sir with us?
I think there is a network problem. Give me no, I think he's there. Sir Karad, sir. Karad, sir, can we have you, sir, please?
I think, sir, there is some bandwidth issue. I can see the triangle in the corner.
Yeah, I'm just calling this one.
Sir is connecting in a minute, sir. Just a minute.
Pravinji, you're on mute. We could not hear you.
Yeah. Nilesh, you spoke to Shashi?
Sir, yes, yes.
Just a minute. I think you should join us.
My session is at Pravinji, if you allow, if I can get the resolution done.
Yeah, we can do that. Otherwise, we can. Yeah, no problem. Go ahead. We'll ask.
Yeah. Please relay the resolution and please start the polling process. Yeah, please start the polling. Yes, thank you very much. And you all can see that the polling has begun. You all would see a polling window and you all have to respond there only. We have less than a minute, my friends, and the 15 seconds have already lapsed. Please hurry up and please let us know what all your views are. Yesterday, we saw many of you could not figure out where to poll, but please, yes, you can now see a polling window live in front of you. Please go ahead, vote, and let us know what is your view on this very, very important resolution. Last 20 seconds. I can see Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. N.T. Rao sir has also voted. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your vote. Okay, last few seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Your time is over, my friends. I request my technical team if they could show us the results. If we can see the results, please. Oh, great. There's no single opposition, and everyone those who have voted for the resolution. Thank you very much, everyone in the audience. Thank you, everyone in the panel, for letting us know your views. And now it is time that I move towards the end, concluding this particular session. But before I do that, let me understand quickly if we have our founder president sir with us. Yes. So,
Yes, Gautam has joined.
I request our honorable founder, Professor Dr. Vishwanath Karad, sir, to say a few words. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to especially Mr. Madhavan Nair, sir, Mr. Shishangji, Mr. Anil, and Dr. Jennifer McVeigh. I feel really educated and feeling convinced about what way and what pathway we can adopt in facing this very invisible enemy, but possibly creating a visible destruction all over the world. We needed some such words of advice. Only I can say that the whole human race, and especially those who are controlling the entire world, the very powerful people, the members of the Security Council and the WHO, and the rest of the community, has possibly recognized this danger, but they have to realize the impending situation. And we have been having a hope that we will not have some reputation very soon or in the early period, but the entire world has been feeling horrified, and horrifying silence is being experienced, especially to Madhavan Nair Sahab and the other people have really given the insight and made us little wiser to face the situation. That's my personal feeling. This very subject has been very, very important for the human race. Possibly, as I have been always saying, that in the whole known human history, some such situations have arisen before, but this coronavirus or COVID-19 has given a very horrifying signal to the whole human race. I don't know whether in the human history, such a situation of closing down all the churches, the temples, the mosques, and all the 160, 70 nations completely locked down. Especially the nations like America, Russia, China, Britain, France, Italy, Spain, and even India and the neighboring countries. The situation which we have been facing is creating a fear complex in the minds of people. There is a fear and fear of death. That word is very typical, but psychologically, the mind is under tremendous tension. And I have a hope, of course, that with whatever has been said by all these great speakers of today, I feel that yes, we are trying to perform and do our duty, particularly for the last 1 or 2 days, what we are discussing about the very eradication and of biological and chemical weapons. But maybe even the other weapons which are there, which have been stockpiled by the whole nations, the powerful nations, is highly horrifying. And the human race is not expecting the leaders of the global community who are very powerful to take up such issues and have a rat race or a bad game of creating horrifying weapons. I have a feeling that this MIT World Peace University, which has been engaged in understanding the very essence and philosophy of what the humanity stands for, we have been trying to analyze and think ourselves what is the solution to make the society a little wiser so that this Mother Earth can become a place to live happily. Yesterday, one gentleman said we have to develop a holistic, peace-loving society. And in my opinion, of course, whatever has been said by all the great speakers, I feel it would be a very appropriate thing. The education, which I have been always calling as a value-based universal education system. And when we use the word value-based, and that too with the universal principle, universal secret, this is also a secret agent. This coronavirus or the COVID-19 has been proved to be a secret agent. But this is an invisible enemy, we have said. To my mind, it is the invisible is always, the energy is always invisible. Any force in that manner. And we have been trying to understand through the various schools and the institutions world over. I think the education institution has a duty to perform and possibly to think on these lines and understand the essence and philosophy of the scientific component and the spiritual component, that is the mission. That will really help the world to be a little bit wiser, and possibly we'll certainly have a courage and conviction to face these impending dangers like this. But I have a hope that the man or the human race or the leaders or the scientists or the people, when we have been saying that it's the failure of the science, the misuse of scientific techniques or scientific research is something very wrong. Possibly the attitude has not to be destructive, but has to be positive. And development of the positive mindset is the main issue. That's my personal feeling. I'm grateful to all the panelists and especially all the speakers who have given us this insight. Thank you so much, friends. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your concluding remarks. I now request the Pro Vice Chancellor of MIT World Peace University, Group Captain G.P. Apte, sir, to kindly propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you. It was a really wonderful session, and we had four speakers. First of all, let me propose a vote of thanks to all the eminent speakers. Padma Vibhushan, Shri Madhavan Nairji, Shri Shashankji, Shri Anil Tribunaji, and Dr. Jennifer McPhee. It was a good introduction. There were 4 speakers, and there was some interruption due to technical problem. I also propose a vote of thanks to our founder president, Dr. Vishwanath Karad, and Vice Chancellor, Dr. N.T. Rao, for coming, attending this session and motivating us. Thank you very much. Our next session is going to start back to back, and therefore I will just take a goodbye to you. Thank you very much, Jay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for proposing a vote of thanks. I thank once again all the dignitaries and all the panelists for this particular session. Thank you very much for joining in. Our next session is starting right on time at 4 p.m. Session 4, Biological and Chemical Weapons, Siding with Angels and Demons, in which we are going to again have many dignitaries on the dais. But I request each one of you to reach out and find the next link to join for the next session at 4 p.m. Once again, I would like to thank everyone here who contributed to this particular session. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.